We'll take your questions now, so feel free to unmute your device and ask your question, or if you want to type it in the chat, I can ask your questions for you as well.
Hello, Miss Margaret. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, how does this affect a job opportunity? Let's say somebody went to a university, a well-known university, and another person went to like a community college or just normal college, and there is a job opportunity. Um, let's say, how does it affect the type of job you can get and the type of pay? Does it matter if I went to Harvard and I got the same degree with somebody that did not go to Harvard? Does it affect the type of jobs I can get and the kind of pay I can get? And I'll give you an example. I'm an RN. I can pretty much work anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that also went to Harvard and got the RN, are they going to have better pay and better job opportunity because of Harvard? Or are we still the same level, even though I didn't go to Harvard?
I think you're at the same level because they're looking at your grade point average and the courses are the same.
Okay, so they are not getting a higher pay than me that did not go to Harvard.
They shouldn't be.
Okay, I just wanted to know that. Thank you.
There's people like to say my daughter went to Harvard or my son went to Stanford, but that's more just I've been on many hiring committees, and we do a paper review where we count points for different things. And what we did at the college many times is people get an online degree at some school, but it's a for-profit college that's just more interested in getting the money than actually teaching. And if we were looking at that versus somebody who actually attended college in person, or some online classes, we give fewer points to the ones who did an online from certain universities.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions regarding college and the workforce? We'll take those questions at this time.
I have one.
Yes.
Just a follow-up question with what Sister Joy asked. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I hear, or it seems there is people tend to look at, if you got your degree from a traditional traditional school setting, like if you had went to, in campus versus if you got your degree online. Is there any such thing as, maybe it's less of a degree if I got it online, especially for maybe a master's or PhD program, rather than, going into traditional school setting?
Technically, we're not supposed to make a distinction between the two, but sometimes I had a teacher that we hired, and he had gotten a degree, an online degree from this particular school, and he was able to, he made an F. Well, actually, in graduate school, you don't make anything but A or B. If you make a C, usually that's looked down on, and you're put on probation if you have an average of C. But he had made an F. He repeated the course, made an F again. And I thought, that's a graduate school, and they're allowing him to continue. And then instead of writing a dissertation, he spent a weekend at a retreat and then did a small presentation. And that was enough to get a PhD. So we looked on that as not quite the same as somebody who, because there are schools, very good schools, who that offer online degrees. And one of my nieces just got her master's in business from Rice University, and she did it all online. And that hasn't affected her negatively at all. But there are certain ones that are just businesses, and they're not interested in really in teaching.
Thank you.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
any more questions on the college and the workforce?
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Yes.
My questions is concerning someone that is looking for admission here in the United States. Like I have a child over there in Africa after writing the GRE and I think the TOEFL exam, and he has a very good score. Then applying to the University of Texas was like denied. I was like, what's happening? What are the requirements? What is expected of him?
That's the University of Texas.
Yeah.
That's where I went to school. I think they accept like the top 25%. They look at the high school scores and they take the top 25 or maybe less than that, maybe 20 or 15%, and accept them automatically. But I'm surprised if he had a high enough score on the GRE and the TOEFL exam. I would think he could appeal that and ask, say that's unfair.
Okay.
So what's he going to do?
Is that what?
I didn't hear you.
Your question again.
Oh, when was he planning to attend the university?
Oh, he just applied. They just gave him the letter like a month or 2 months ago that they are sorry to inform him that the application is not successful. And I was like, what are we going to?
Because usually it's not just your GPA, grade point average, and the test scores. They usually look at other things. If you have been in social organizations or done service, and a letter that you write, kind of a personal history, they take all of those together. Because you don't want somebody who's just done nothing but study and doesn't have any relationships with other people. You want a more well-rounded student. I would appeal that to say that, Ms. Esther, do you have any idea?
Actually, I'm beginning to think about that. Maybe while filling the application form, maybe there is about his personal history. Maybe there are certain things that were not right when he was filling the form. That is the only reason I can.
But I think he has a right to ask why he specifically, like, what is it that I need to do to accepted?
Okay.
You are correct. I would reach out to the admissions office or whoever is in charge via email and ask them to please give me a little bit more information on what I need to do to get in.
Okay.
And it could be a quota system, like they're only accepting a certain number of students, and all the other students who applied were way up much higher. And so they just cut it off, right? Maybe his name was the next name on the list to be accepted. I'm sorry. Or maybe that's not God's plan for where he's supposed to study.
Okay, thank you. I think I do the next thing.
What does he want to study?
We find out why, the reason for not picking him.
And what is it? What field or area does he want to study?
I think analytical chemistry.
Where are these children in?
The question? Hello?
It was Bro Romeo that was saying something.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. I have a question, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have a question for Dr. Margaret there.
Yes.
Thank you, doctor, for your wonderful expose. Now, most of the time, even looking at the website and application portals for international students, there's always this issue of maybe 20 hours of work per week that you have
yes.
as an international student.
Mhm.
Okay. Now that let's say I am already here in the United States, I have a permanent residence here in the United States. If I happen to gain admission, maybe for a PhD in the university, I'm taking an example, Texas A&M. Will I be limited to only 20 hours of work, even though I have the work permits to work as I want? Will I be limited only to 20 hours of work per week? That's my first question. And then secondly, I want to believe that you gain an accommodation if I am applying as a full-time postgraduate student, PhD student. I will get accommodation on campus. But now I am a family person. I'm married. I have kids. Will that be taken into consideration when that accommodation is being given to me, or they will treat me independently? That's my question.
What do you mean by accommodation?
Accommodation, yes, for me to live on campus as a full-time student, if that will be granted to me or my entire family will benefit from that.
So the University of Houston has special apartments for families, for students, but you have to pay for the room and board there. It's not necessarily part of being a student, but you can live with your family at the University of Houston on campus.
Okay, this let's say, for example, if I'm granted a scholarship, let's say full-time scholarship, as a PhD student, is my family going to benefit? My wife, my kids, will they also be beneficiary of such a scholarship? That's my question.
Oh, like if they accepted you and said, we'll pay for your housing, that they would not let your family stay there. I think that if they offered you housing as part of the scholarship, then just like if you have financial aid, you can use the money for yourself and your family.
Yeah.
But I would talk to the admissions counselor about that, and to get specifically what they would say. At Texas A&M.
Okay. So maybe I need to maybe talk with the counselors and get full information about that before I get into that. All right. Thank you. That was the second question. The first question about 20 hours of work. Am I restricted? Not. Just want to know.
But you have a resident visa now.
Yes.
So I thought that 20 hours was only if you have an international student visa.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Dr. Margaret?
I just have a general question for the three speakers. As resource people, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
As resource people for this symposium, is it? I don't know if you guys are willing to give us your contact if you have any need of asking anything later in the future to help us.
Yes, we will display their contact information at the very end with all their information. So if you have additional questions that come up, then you can reach out to the speakers. Okay, at this time we'll move to general questions for the speakers. So I'll start with some of the questions that were in the chat before. So this one is for Ruth. And you kind of touched on this earlier, but someone also asked in the chat, so I'm just going to ask it again. So the question was, is isolating the kids from the outside world not going to affect their social life, especially since they're only familiar with their like family members? And the second question was, can you pay someone to do homeschooling for you?
Okay, so I'll address the isolation. I got this a lot. Nobody knew my children were homeschooled. They all thought they were in regular school. So thinking your child's going to be isolated because they're at home doing school is, I think, kind of a misconception because, like I said, you're going out to go shopping one day. So remember, you can do homeschooling however you want. So let's say for my family, we did school from Monday through Thursday. So then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they were off. So Fridays was grocery day or park day, or, we went to, did a field trip. So they're out interacting with other adults, other children or babies, or they're interacting with a lot of other people. So they're not isolated. They are never isolated. The only reason they would be isolated would be because you as the parent didn't take them out. You didn't go to church, you didn't go do anything. That would be the only reason why a homeschool child would be isolated. And I know there are some children out there that has happened to, but for the most part, for most homeschooling families, they're out in the world, they're out interacting, they're out doing stuff, they're out learning how to be a member of society. So I don't subscribe to that type of thinking that the child's going to be very isolated and they won't know anything. So it's like I said, my children are very well versed in knowing how to communicate with adults, with babies, with middle children, with any type of little human being, big human being. They can talk to them and they'll have those skills to talk to other people. And then the other one, what was the other question? It was on.
Can you pay someone to do homeschooling for you?
Okay, no, you can't per se. You can go use those online homeschools or charter schools, like I was saying, and they'll like do school at home, but they're online. So technically there you're kind of paying a school to school your child, but they're still at home. And you can't do that. That's an option. But you can't go pay somebody to homeschool your child because the state or the law says you have to be the one homeschool. So like I always got all the time, my friends were like, would you homeschool my kids? Because they liked how my kids were growing up and how had manners and were polite. And so they wanted their children to have. And I said, I would love to, but I can't. By the state law, I am not allowed to school your children. You have to do it. I can assist you. I can help you get started. I can show you what to do, but I cannot physically teach your child. You have to be in charge of that. You have to be in charge of doing all of that. So that's what homeschooling is it's parent led. You're not having somebody else lead it.
Wow. So what if you don't have this skill for, like, let's say you want to teach algebra or geometry or something, and you don't have this skill, you don't even know it yourself. You can't get a professional to come and teach the kid.
So in that instance, you can hire a tutor, or a lot of the curriculum I use, because I'm not strong in math. I'm more of an English person. I excel in reading and doing that. I don't excel in math. I'm terrible at math, actually. And so I got curriculum that actually helped my child to do the math. So my son right now is doing physics for his junior year. He does an online math program. It's called Teaching Textbooks. I used that program with all of my kids. They all did very well in it. And it was great. And then if they had problems that they couldn't get from the online curriculum, they were stumped, I would try to help them. I was stumped. So you can go out of you have friends at church that are math teachers, and I had a lot of teachers around me. So I could ask them, hey, can you help my kid just figure this out? You can do that. you can ask for outside help. It's not technically them teaching your child, you know, they're assisting you. So it's like a teacher assistant, if you want to think of it that way, because you're not paying them, they're just helping you to do that. So you're never alone to homeschool your child. There's a lot of people, resources you can reach out to, and people are very generous. They're very happy to help you. You just have to know who's around you, and know who your friends are and what they're doing. And if you're part of a church community, there's a lot of help in that community. They're very happy to help you.
So we got a question in the chat about the Homeschooling Families Association or things for networking. I know you talked about that during your segment, but can you briefly go over that again, and the guidelines for homeschooling families regarding the curriculum?
Okay, so there's no homeschooling guidelines for the curriculum. The only thing stated in the law for the state of Texas is you must teach them citizenship. That can mean teaching them how to pledge allegiance to the flag, teaching them the song to be patriotic. They study citizenship in Texas or just in the world in general. And they do have curriculum or studies that you can pull off the internet or purchase to teach your child that. And then for the the Homeschooling Families for Networking, I can type it in here, I think. And I can type it in, but they are the homeschoolingmom.com. That's not a network, but it is because that's an online place you can go, like a resource. And she does a whole lot of articles on a plethora of things. And so she's really good. I would say you can join where is my family, the Texas Homeschool Coalition. That would be a good one to associate yourself with. Homeschooling Legal Defense Council, which is the hslda.org. Those people are literally lawyers for homeschoolers, because there are some states that are very strict about homeschooling. They demand a lot from the homeschooler. So they just help you avoid or traverse all of that legalities that the state itself imposes. Texas is a great state to homeschool in because they don't have a lot of restrictions. I did homeschool here, and then I homeschooled in New Mexico originally. And New Mexico was actually a pretty easy state to homeschool in as well, because you don't have to give any notice to anybody. You don't have to tell anybody what you're doing. You can just homeschool your child. And that's as if you didn't put your child in traditional school. So, and my last two, they were never in traditional schooling. They've always been at home with me. My oldest was in traditional schooling, so I did have to put a notice of intent that I was going to homeschool her, and then I had to make sure that she wasn't re-enrolled for the new school year. But I did not have issues or problems with that. I'm trying to see. Did that answer your question?
Yes, but can you you mentioned about 3 resources. I got the homeschoolingmom.com, and then there were other 2, I missed them.
Oh, yes, the hslda.org. Let's see if I can type it in here. .org. And then there's, the Homeschool Feast. That one's a good one. Feast.
The Homeschool Thief, you said?
Yeah, it's called homeschoolfeast.com. That's a San Antonio homeschooling group. And you do pay a little fee to join them, but they're the ones who offer sports, all the different sports. They offer co-op classes. They have their own library. You can go and rent out or borrow curriculum from their library. They are a really solid association to participate in. And they're a pretty big group as well. And what was the other one? Oh, yes. The thsc.org. And that one's the Texas Homeschool Coalition. Those would be my top ones I would check out. And like I said, if you go online, there's so many resources for homeschoolers and for homeschooling. It'll blow your mind how much resource there is out there. That's basically where I got all my resources. So if like you move to another state, like I said, look into the legalities of homeschooling in that state. What do they actually require your child to have to learn? But here in Texas, the only requirement they require is, your reading, writing, math, and your basic core subjects plus citizenship. They have to have that in there. So I just ordered a Texas, I think it was a Texas history, and it did citizenship in it. It was probably a half credit course that I had my kids do in 9th grade, just so they showed that they did do that. But you as the mom or dad, you get to, instill in your child what you want them to learn, what you want them to study, any extra history you would like them to learn. It's open. It's very free, and it's your mind is the limit. Your imagination is the limit, I should say.
Thank you so much. But the moderator, can I ask a question or do I have to type in chat?
Oh, you can ask.
So is there a testing system? For example, let's say if I taught my child from pre-K till like however long, is there a testing system to make sure that if they were to go to college, they're meeting the standards for, my homeschooling effort?
They can go take the testing in the regular school if you want to have them tested. You can request that of the school, or you can get it yourself if you're, wanting to see the assessment of where they're at. But I didn't test any of my kids. I made sure, when they were doing their subjects, that they did actually understand their subjects. So we never went forward unless they comprehended what they were doing. And I think my kids speak for how they have turned out. My daughter is a very successful journalist. My middle daughter, she's a Air Force reservist, and then my son, he's doing physics for his junior year in high school. He can graduate this year, but he's decided he didn't want to. He wants to do an extra year, but he's already completed everything. But if you still feel like you need to test your child, you can. You can honestly buy online assessment tests and have your child sit and take it and see, where they really are at and what they're doing. You're going to find out your child is going to be testing above where you think they're at, and it'll surprise you, because I felt like my kids weren't performing the way I thought they were supposed to be performing. But then I go talk to other people and I see them interact with other kids, and you can see in your child that they are more mature, they are more intelligent, they seem to be more well-rounded in just how they carry themselves. So that's also a way you can see if your child is, coming along and up to your standards. And for my homeschooling, it was a 4.0 school, so I ran a hard homeschool, and my kids will attest to that. So I had to learn to pull back and not push so hard, because as a parent too, you might want to push them and say, hey, you need to get on this and you need to do this. But they don't need to learn everything, because they will eventually learn, more. You're constantly learning. And that's a part of homeschooling I instilled in my kids, is you're always going to be learning, and you want to instill in them the love of learning, that you're constantly growing and learning and doing new things. So they're never static. They're always moving and changing, which, life moves and changes.
Thank you so much. I have just one more question. I'll be done. So
Okay.
it's not as if, you're the last child that went on to do physics, there was a time you stopped homeschooling and let him go to the public school. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh no. My two have never gone to public school. They've always been homeschooled. It was my first child. She went to public school till she was in the 4th grade. And then she's actually the one who got me on the homeschooling journey, because she came home and told me, Mommy, my friend is going to be homeschooled. I had never heard of homeschooling before that. And we were living at California at the time. And I said, what is that? And so from there, I went and started looking into it. And we ended up moving to New Mexico. But it took me a year actually before I actually started homeschooling, because back when I started 17 years ago, it really wasn't as popular as it is today. And there wasn't as many resources as there is today. So I started her in the 5th grade, and she was kind of like my guinea pig of what to do. So the other two, they turned out, she says they turned out better than her, but she's doing pretty good, I think.
So I lied. I have one more question. I wish I was early for this one. So if if for example, because I know once you homeschool them up until the point before they go to college, they have to take the SAT, all that exams before they can get admission to college. You know, I can't remember when I took my own, will there be like if they say if when they're filling the form for the SAT, which school did you go to? That way they can follow up with them, and there is no school, and or it's the homeschooling system that you are giving them. I mean, is that looked upon well? Are they able to test and get the SAT scores before they go to college? What is that in that aspect?
So I've been just researching. There's colleges out there that do actually encourage homeschoolers to apply. They are actively recruiting them just because they do a lot better in college. They're more inclined to finish college and do better at schoolwork and all of that, and just they're more well-rounded. But when you take the SAT or ACT, all you put on there is homeschool. And nowadays it's fine. They don't look down on it or anything. If anything, they're more inclined to pursue those individuals because they know they will be a lot more successful should they allow them into their school, just because they perform better and they're more well-rounded students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we'll move on to Brother Levi and Sister Joy.
I have a question. Thank you so much. To Ruth. Yeah, I'm talking like if you are not educated in the American system of education, like me, I was educated in Cameroon, Central Africa, and even though they teach everything, but it's not exactly the same. They teach the same math, the same topics, they see everything, but their history is different. Even though they teach world history, they don't teach Texas history. And there's some things that I know they are similar, there are some things that are different. Is it advisable for me who not go through the academic system in Texas to homeschool my students? Or if I want to do that, do I need to have a curriculum that I will study first before I can do that? Because homeschooling is a good idea. I think it worked even for a former President Barack Obama. They told me that the mother homeschooled him before he went to one of the Ivy League universities. Was homeschooled too. So is it advantageous for us to do that, or just have to follow the traditional system of education?
Oh, homeschooling, I would say, is not part of the traditional American schooling system. I've chosen different things to teach my kids, so they didn't necessarily learn what the other kids were learning, and that's what I liked about homeschooling. That's why I did it, because I get to decide what I want my child to learn. So if you want them to learn history, other history, that's your, that's up to you. That's the freedom that you get. You get to teach them whatever you want them to learn. And that's why I said, for me, I wanted them to learn everything, because there's just so much stuff to learn that's just exciting out there. But you can't. So you get to decide, what's most important for your family, for your kids. How do you want them to grow up? What kind of citizen do you want them to be? What kind of human being do you want them to be? So you get to decide that, and you get to decide what to put into their mind and into their heart. So that's why I said a lot of it, I never followed the school system. I just did the citizenship, like I said, because that is part of what I want them to grow up to be honorable people. I want them to grow up to be honest people. So I agreed with that. And I said, yeah, I'll teach my child that. You get to decide, though, what you want to teach your child. They don't. Nobody can tell you anything. So that's the great thing about being in Texas. You know, you don't have to do what you don't want to do. You get to decide.
Okay, I just
Thank-
want to briefly mention we'll have about 10 more minutes of Q&A and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sister Joy.
My question is for Miss Margaret and Miss Esther Amaboni. Thank you so much, Miss Ruth. You have really enlightened me. Miss Margaret and Miss Esther, I want to ask you, have you ever seen a transcript of somebody that came from homeschool and they have to take like an entrance test to enter college? Have you all seen their test score and then compared it to people that went to traditional school to see like, okay, they are doing really good or they were not up to par? Have you seen any of that kind of transition from homeschool to your, college?
I haven't. But I recall that as a sixth grade teacher, I had a student, her name was Mercy, and she came from homeschooling into sixth grade at the public school because her parents were trying to bring her back into public school. And I know she had a very difficult time adjusting. So they went back to homeschool. And that's because their family has lived together. That's not the experience of every child. This one was just really strange. The family had lived together. She didn't really have friends. She couldn't make friends. Regardless of where we sat her in class, it was just a problem because she just always felt very paranoid about other people. So we recommended her for all kinds of assessments, and eventually her parents withdrew her. That's the only one I know.
Miss Margaret?
I've had students in my classes that were homeschooled at the college, and I couldn't tell the difference. And when they, if anything, they were better educated or more prepared than this other students who had just gone to high school and traditional school. Their transcripts looked a lot different, though. That remember one that had his mother had taken a tour of a museum, and they did some project, and it was much more like real life than the textbook.
And sitting in class.
They're very good students.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to just briefly ask a question from the chat. Someone asked, which I think it might have been mentioned a little bit, but just to clarify, are the kids in homeschool required to take the state standardized test in order to advance to like the next grade?
Yes, they are. They take the same assessments that the kids in public school take.
Precious hands are raised.
Sister Precious, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I just wanted to ask about homeschooling. Is it would you say it's a full-time, say for example, a mom that wants to homeschool her kids, does she have to do it full-time? Like my question is, can you have a robust career while, homeschooling your kids? Because I think that's one major thing. Like, while I really know the benefits and I know the benefits of homeschooling and all of that, my career is also a very big part of, is also a very big part of me. I know how much I can do in the career sphere. So can I have both? That's the question. Can I like say, okay, I want to homeschool my kids and I want to have a robust career? I don't know if anybody on the line, all the speakers that have spoken can say they've had both together. So that's my question.
Is that for directed to me then? Right?
Yes.
Okay. I would say if you want to do that, you can. It's just going to be very difficult. Children require a lot of attention, especially when they're younger, because you're establishing how to study. You're establishing, they need more hands-on, honestly, when they are younger. If you get into the middle school, high school years, you don't need as much supervision because you've already established that in the beginning. But if you have young children and you're trying to go get it or, have a career at the same time, I would not advise that. The kids are going to suffer, their education is going to suffer because just like they go to school, they're there and the teacher's there. You need to be their teacher. You are their teacher. So I wouldn't recommend doing that when they're younger. If you can wait till they're in middle school, like I said, 7th grade and up, they're more established. You can, do a like part-time job then, because I've done that. But I wouldn't recommend doing it while they're young because you have to establish that foundation first of school, of studying and how to, be a little human being who's polite and kind and wants to do their homework.
Okay, thank you so much. And maybe I missed this because for some reason I didn't get the whole all the sessions and the teachings, but if this like it's homeschooling, I know it's a great choice, but is there a way to still utilize the public school system and still raise up kids that you can try to control? I think at the beginning I heard someone saying being part of the school board, and I'm sorry, I'm not able to turn on my video. I look wonderful. So you're not able to sorry, back to what I was saying. Can they attend the public school system and still do very well? Like you're still able to cut off some of the things that we don't want them to have in their lives, or you don't want them to believe. How can one still utilize that public school system and still raise kids that are really, really strong morally, have virtues, and are well-rounded still in school? So
Dr. Esther.
Well, what I was going to say is that I've seen kids who are homeschooled who participate in athletics in the public school system. What becomes very tricky with homeschool, at least for the ones that I know, is that when the kids begin to get into middle school and high school and their courses are like chemistry and biology and physics and they need labs, that becomes a little tricky. So I think there's a way to partner with high schools or schools around them to get that experience. So that's what I know. Homeschooled kids are able to, at least from my experience, being able to participate.
okay, thank you. I was actually asking, like, not even homeschooling and trying to utilize some of the public school system, but like using the public school system and still making sure that, these kids are not like using the public school system. I don't know if I'm not framing the question well, but like using the public system and still raising
Miss
kids.
Esther, you addressed it earlier where you are saying that a parent has to be very involved. She's saying she wants the kid in public school, but she wants to make sure she can filter anything that she doesn't want them to learn. How can she make sure of that?
Well, so the curriculum for public school is basic, right? What happens is the parents, if there's anything that's going to be taught outside of the norm, an example is sex education, for example, or any LGBTQ. The requirement in California is that we're supposed to, site administrators, we're supposed to send that information home, a letter home, and then we're supposed to give parents the opportunity to preview the materials. And if parents don't feel like they want their children in that class at that time, then there is a form they complete. And then it is our job to find a way to put the kids somewhere else when that instruction is being delivered. So for example, if the instruction is being delivered in the classroom, you can send the kid to another teacher's classroom, same grade level, but not delivering the instruction, or they can go to the library, or you can find something else for them to do.
Thank you so much for answering all our questions.